Om. Om. Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trilokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha. Twameva Mata Chapita Twameva Twameva Bandhuscha Sakha Twameva Twameva Vidya Dravinam Twameva Twameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Twameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva. Jai Guru. Om Sahanam Avatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So we're making our way through the 6th chapter. And Mark, can you help us out? Which verse are we on tonight?
33.
And do we have Ganesh yet?
Yes, I'm here, Jim.
So we're in chapter 6, verse 33.
6.
Abhyasa Yoga.
Okay. Arjuna Vacha Yoyam Yogastvaya Prokta Samyena Madhusudana Etasyaham na pashyami Chanchalatva sthiram. This yoga of equanimity taught by thee, O slayer of Madhu, I see not its enduring continuity because of the restlessness of the mind.
So Arjuna, who is our spiritual every person, has the same problem that you and I have. In meditation, the mind is noisy, it's distracted. Out there in the world, there are things that attract me and I can't help it. There are things I dislike and I can't help it. Not only that, even my actions, to a large degree, are not under the control of my intellect. In the Christian scripture, in St. Paul's letter to the Romans, one of his most famous sayings is, I do not do that which I would do, and I do that which I hate. Therefore, it is not I that do it, but sin that is lodged in my limbs. So his word sin was the same as our notion of vasana. because that's our experience. I get up in the morning and I say, I'm going to do blah, 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 blah. And then I can't do it. Who's had that experience? And then I say, oh, I was such a B word yesterday. I'll never act like that again. And then I get triggered and I go off again. Who's had that happen? So Arjun is just like you and me. He aspires to this samadrishta. He isn't enduring. I can maybe maintain it for a few minutes. Yeah, I'm not sure it's possible. Let's see what the blessed Lord says. Going on.
Chanchalam hi manah Krishna pramathi balavadridham tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sadushkaram. The mind verily is, O Krishna, restless, turbulent, strong, and unyielding. I deem it quite as difficult to control as the wind.
Yes. Chanchalam. Chalchalati means to move. Chanchalam means really move about. Chala, 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 chala. Isn't that our experience? And can you or I control the wind? Oh, right in my face. So are we powerless? Are we helpless? Are we hopeless? And confronting this, many people give up meditation. It's just too hard, doesn't seem to yield any enduring results. Or they rationalize, oh yeah, I meditate. I listen to spiritual music while I'm on the treadmill at the gym. Better than nothing. Going on.
Sri Bhagavanuvacha asamshayam mahabaho mano durnigraham chalam abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagyena chu grihyate vairagyena cha grihyate. The blessed Lord said, undoubtedly, O mighty armed one, the mind is difficult to control and is restless, but by practice, O son of Kunti, and by dispassion it is restrained.
Yes. So here is the secret. By practice and vairagya, the detachment, the dispassion. What is it that keeps the restless mind restless? It's my deeply rooted belief that people, places, things, and situations are going to make me happy, or I need to avoid them because that's my trigger. It's going to make me unhappy. And vairagya involves a clear-sighted analysis of the world. The first step up, seeing its fundamental impermanence. Everything is impermanent. That's one of the great values of a meditation retreat. Whatever thought flows arise, they don't last. Now, I want to give you one of the secrets of the mind. Any interior experience, a thought or a feeling that is resisted, that's avoided, that's denied, will tend to persist. Any interior experience that's fully experienced tends to dissipate. So, for example, let's say you have had trauma as a child, and it was so painful, you're in total suppression and denial about it. But every time a similar experience comes along, you're so triggered you run the other way. As long as we resist, as long as we run, as long as we deny, it will stick to us. So maybe you go to the psychotherapist and you're in trauma therapy and they hold safe space. And then the memory comes up and all the feelings are there. And the charge on that begins to lessen. And as we find similar situations in the present, they don't trigger us in the same way. Now, you don't have to go to psychotherapy. You can do it. I'm absolutely in favor of it. It's a great act of self-esteem. But meditation does the same thing. It just involves more discipline. Because what happens in meditation is the unloading of the unconscious. I like to tell people if you are a regular meditator, you'll feel better. You'll feel everything better. And if we develop this quality of Sakshi Bhav, being the witness of our thoughts and feelings, as they arise, we can be fully present to them, knowing I am not that. So vairagya is not a practice of psychological suppression. That's a misunderstanding of it. Now, it doesn't mean we run around acting on it. It doesn't mean if I get triggered and I'm full of rage, I scream and yell at somebody and hit them. No, it doesn't mean that either. Just don't do something, sit there. Just don't do something, stand there. Shake, rattle, and roll. Be present to the interior experience. And do nothing. The scriptures say we need to be viryam. What does viryam mean? We have a Sanskritist with us online. Ganesh, what's viryam mean?
Virile.
Pardon me?
Virile. Virile. Virile.
Yes, being brave, a warrior spirit, strong, courageous. Why? It's not to go fight people in the streets. It's to face all that stuff that's in my mind. Now, yoga is not a process of improving ourselves, self-esteem. It's a process of self-abandonment. We abandon that small self. And one of the first and most important demonstrations of that to ourselves is the willingness to have our minds show up as a basket case. We give up trying to look good. First of all, everybody else sees it anyway. The only person we're trying to look good to is ourselves. So don't try to be a spiritual goody-goody. Strive for authenticity.
Can I ask a question?
Please.
When do you have any practical tips when you are meditating and thoughts that are very emotional arrive? How to not kind of get caught up in the thoughts, and kind of go down you go down that rabbit hole while you're trying
Yeah.
to meditate.
Stay away from narrative and pay attention to the feeling. One of the ways to do that is, what does it feel like in my body? Oh, I'm feeling tightness in my chest. Oh, I've got this huge lump in my throat. The intellect keeps wanting to attach a story to it. First of all, you never know if that's the right story. Am I making sense?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But you don't want to push it down. Swamiji used to say, don't get caught up in the theme of the thinking.
Mm.
Because in many ways, the narratives are ways to avoid the feeling. So if the feeling of, oh, I'm really, really hurt, then the mind or the intellect will come and say, actually, what I am is pissed off. And how could they have said or done that to me? You know, the next time I see them, I'm going to go, blah, 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 blah. Do you see what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the narrative is a way not to be present to, oh, I'm so hurt. That wounded me. My tummy is all knotty. My throat's constricted. So that's one tool that may be useful.
Mm-hmm.
So, as we had in earlier verses in this chapter, again, bring the mind back to the point of attention. Remember, we had two practices. Concentrate on a point between the brows or concentrate on the tip of the nose. This is metaphor. It just means in the beginning, it's of value to have a point of attention. It can be a mantra. It can be the vision of your Ishta Devata. It can be on the breath. But the point I'm getting at here is we need to be able to allow the unconscious to unload, not suppress or deny or run away from that stuff. They're just feelings. They're just feelings. So let me review that principle. Any interior event, psychic event, that is resisted or denied or suppressed tends to persist. Any interior event that is fully experienced, totally present to, tends to dissipate. Now, make sure you don't then become identified and attached to the misery. You run around telling everybody, oh, I was sexually assaulted as a child. That's what's wrong with me. And then you keep telling the story, you keep rehashing it. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying. When it arises, be present. And you don't have to do anything with it. Just be present. Don't run. This is yoga balam. This is the strength, the power of yoga. So what Krishna says here is there's no magic bullet. There's no pill you can take that's going to allow us to recover from the trauma of our childhood, trauma of a bad relationship. And oftentimes in meditation, things will arise that may not even be from this lifetime. You don't need to know the story. All you have to do is allow the feeling to arise. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add to that? All right, next verse.
अर्जुन उवाच अयति श्रद्धयोपेतो योगाश्चलितमानस अप्राप्य योगसंसिद्धिं कां गतिं कृष्ण गच्छति. Arjuna said, when a man, though possessed of faith, is unable to control himself and his mind wanders away from yoga, to what end does he, having failed to attain perfection in yoga, go? O Krishna.
So there's two ways to look at this verse. One is what happens if, as a yogi in meditation, my mind wanders away and I do not dwell in samadhi. The other way to look at it, what happens if I hit one of these big roadblocks and I give up practice? When I have the klesha, the defilement that I don't believe in the scripture, or I have the klesha, the defilement that I have a dull intellect and I don't understand it, or the third one, the klesha, the defilement that my heart is too filled with kama, with desire. And because of those three, I give up being steadfast on the path. Let's see what happens. Going on.
Kachinno bhayavibhrishta Kachinno bhayavibhrishta Chinna bramiva nashyati apratishto mahabaho vimudho brahmanah pati. Fallen from both, does he not, O mighty arm, perish like a rent cloud, supportless and deluded in the path of Brahman?
So if I do yoga for several years and get caught up in, let's say, addiction, Or I end up getting a girl pregnant and go, okay, now what I've got to do is work, 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 work for the rest of my life to support a family. Or I get involved with a guru who's a charlatan and I lose faith. Arjuna says, then am I doomed? Do I have to start all over again my next life? Let's see what the blessed Lord says.
एतन्मे संशयं कृष्ण छेत्तुमर्हस्य शेषत त्वदन्यः संशयस्यास्य छेत्ता न ह्युपपद्यते. This doubt of mine, O Krishna, please dispel completely, because it is not possible for anyone but you to dispel this doubt.
Yes. So he's afraid that he's going to lose hope. And I like to tell people now, I've been a crappy yogi. Oh, you have no idea. But for 50 years, I've been steadfast. I keep on keeping on. And if I lose heart or get discouraged, okay, today's a new day. The only yoga I can do is today's yoga to the best of my ability. Going on, let's see what the blessed Lord says.
श्रीभगवानुवाच पार्थ नैवेह नामुत्र विनाशस्तस्य विद्यते न हि कल्याणकृत् कश्चित् दुर्गति तात गच्छति. The blessed Lord said, O Partha, neither in this world nor in the next world is there destruction for him, none verily who strives to be good. O my son, ever come strives to be, O my son, ever comes to grief. Never comes to grief?
So the point here is you can't take your money with you when you die. You can't take your relationships with you. You can't take your academic degrees with you, but you do take your yoga with you. So, however well you have progressed in this lifetime, that becomes part of the subtle body. You don't lose it. And even in this life, even a little bit of this yoga frees us from great fear. Even if all we're able to do is hang on to the feet of the Lord. Crisis comes along. Oh God, save me. Help. One of my favorite prayers. That and oops when I screw up. This is what Patanjali calls Ishvara Pranidhana, trustful surrender to God. All right, going on.
प्राप्य पुण्यकृतां लोकान् उत्तिष्ट्वा शाश्वती समां शुचीनां श्रीमतां गेहे योगभ्रष्टोऽभिजायते. Having attained to the worlds of the righteous and having dwelt there for everlasting long years, he who has fallen from yoga is born again in the house of the pure and the wealthy.
So you go to Swarga, a heaven realm, a Punya Loka, a realm of the righteous. You live out some of the karmas from the preceding life, and then you're born into a family that is conducive to resuming your yoga. Now, practically speaking, that may not mean that you're born in India to a religious family or anything like that. Who can say? Your karma will dictate it. But you will get the sanskaras as a child that are needed to impel us into yoga. It might present as a great crisis early in your life, which then propels you into yoga. We look at great Mahatmas like Ramana Maharshi, attains realization without a guru at 16. What we don't know is what he went through in a prior life. He may have gotten really, really close to self-realization, but not quite, and then he dies. So he's born as a Tamil Brahmin, exposed to the scriptures early in life, gets a good education, and has his crisis. A school chum passes away. He contemplates death and attains deep realization at the age of 16. We don't know. Most of us do not remember a prior life. Out of my own direct experience, when I first met Swamiji and he was unfolding the Vedanta, now, I'm this Westerner, had no exposure to Eastern thought. It was like I was remembering it. It was just on the edge. You know, like when you hear a song on the radio and you know who the artist is, and you go, now, what's their name? What's their name? Anybody have that experience? And then someone says, oh, Sammy Davis Jr. That's right. It was that kind of an experience. It was like he was just bringing back to memory. I had no difficulty understanding it. I must have been a yogi for many lives in order to have that kind of punya. So Krishna here is saying, my devotee is never destroyed. Don't worry. Don't worry. And this is why I'm so fond of the Western Christian symbol of the labyrinth. What's the difference between a labyrinth and a maze? You can get lost in a maze. You know, you watch Harry Potter, that's a maze. But a labyrinth, you're directed to all the turns. You can't get lost. And you always go to the center. But if you walk a labyrinth with another person and you start several minutes apart, there are times when it looks like you're going in opposite directions. or very far apart from the other person as it goes through the twists and the turns. Everybody is coming home to God. Nobody fails in the end. Have faith. Have faith. Shraddha. Next verse.
अथवा योगिनामेव कुले भवति धीमताम् एतद्धि दुर्लभतरं लोके जन्मे यदीदृशम्. Or he is even born in the family of the wise yogis. Verily, a birth like this is very difficult to obtain in this world.
I've only known one person. Her name was Grace Hooper Pettifer. She was English. And her father was a Sufi and was responsible for bringing, I think it's Pir Inayat Khan, the Sufi master, late 19th century, brought him over to Britain. And she's the only person I've ever met who was raised with no veil. Deep in the self, from childhood. But that's very, very rare. It happens that some people get born into a family where the parents are jnanis. But it doesn't matter. We're born where we're born, when we're born, with the prarabdha that we have. All we can do is do the work. Any thoughts on this?
What was her name?
Grace Hooper Pettifer. I think her father's name was George Hooper. She's long dead. But she was a really, really deep, deep mystic. She had a group, it met in a hotel ballroom downtown, the Order of Melchizedek, I think she called it. It was Western stuff. But very much a non-dualist, a deep knower of the self. Going on.
तत्र तं बुद्धिसंयोगं लभते पौर्वदेहिकं यतते च ततो भूय संसिद्धौ कुरु नन्दन. There he comes to be united with the knowledge acquired in his former body and strives more than before for perfection, O son of the Kurus.
Yeah. So we have this phenomenon of remembering yoga we've done in the past. So you may remember, for example, having been a Raja Yogi and be attracted to that for a while. Or you may remember that you were an Agori in another life. And that's why you've been such a rascal in the first part of this life. Or you may have done all sorts of other practices and traditions, and there are just hints and flavors of them. But the main thing is Atmavidya, the knowledge of your own self. And so you take up where you left off. Please. You never need to have permission to ask a question.
It might be a bit of a tangent, but what going back to the last verse in the story you said, like what is the connection at all between our karma and our past lives and if we were to have a child? And is it kind of completely different in terms of the child?
It can vary.
Okay.
Sometimes, remember, our children come through us, not from us. So sometimes the sanskaras that we have in the home influence the child greatly. Sometimes they're total rebels. And, where did this kid come from? They're so different than the family or the parents. It depends on their prarabdha for that particular lifetime.
Mm.
But is it important for parents to do their best? The first 5 years of a person's life are the most important. So many of the life sanskaras are set in place in that first 5 years. I was told once that in old-timey days in India, they wouldn't let the child touch the ground for the first 5 years. They were always held and cared for by the mother. I don't know. But there can be all sorts of weirdness. I had a dear friend who was raised in a Jewish home. And in that particular home, you never gave your children compliments because it was going to attract the evil eye, the golem. So her parents were hypercritical in her growing up because of weird superstition. I don't know if that answers your question.
Mm-hmm.
But, you can see a family and 2 or 3 children are born into the same family, and 2 of the kids are fine, and one of them just has terrible problems their whole life. Why? Proud of them.
Mhm.
So we don't, as parents, regret. That doesn't do any good. You're not a parent yet. But we also, as children of our parents, it does no good to blame them.
Mm.
It's our karma. I had an alcoholic mother. Was I being punished? No. That's what I needed to experience. And I came to yoga largely as a response to the suffering. Is that useful?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right, any other questions? Next verse.
पूर्वाभ्यासेन तेनैव ह्यते ह्यवशोऽपि स जिज्ञासुरपि योगस्य शब्दब्रह्माति वर्तते. By that very former practice, he's born on in spite of himself. He's born on in spite of himself. Even he who merely wishes to know yoga goes beyond the Shabda Brahman.
Yes, the Shabda Brahma, that means the words of it. The sound. Shabda means sound. So you may be born into a family with privilege, and in the West, you're told to get a career, make a lot of money. The guy who pops into my mind right now, of all people, is Richard Gere, the actor. He has a very, very successful career as a Hollywood star. And we have all sorts of stories about those people and their extroverted lifestyle and stuff like that. But he's an intense and serious devotee. of Tibetan Buddhism. He's a major supporter of the Dalai Lama. Very committed to practice. Where did that come from? Raised in a Buddhist family. I've seen that many, many times. In my own family. My father had no idea what my values were. He always thought I should have gone to Yale and be a lawyer or a physicist or something like that because I was supposedly smart. And instead, I dive headfirst into the spiritual life. He thought it was all superstition for weak people. Until he got a terminal cancer diagnosis. Then all of a sudden, my values began to make sense to him. The last year and a half of his life, we had a marvelous relationship. Amazing. So your family may not totally understand your passion for yoga, or a spouse. That can be a challenge. You may have a deep, deep desire for the spiritual life. And your spouse may, I don't believe any of that stuff. It's for weak-minded people. But what else can we do? Like for yogis, a jinyasu, a seeker after wisdom, a mystic. Any thoughts? All right, next one.
प्रयत्नाद्यतमानस्तु योगी संशुद्धकिल्बिष अनेकजन्म संसिद्ध ततो याति परागतिम् ततो याति param gatim. But the yogi who strives with assiduity, purified from sins and perfected gradually through many births, he then attains the highest goal.
Yes. So it is our swabhava, our self-nature, to realize the self, to come home to God. So there are two forces operating on the human mind. First, karma. So the circle, the karma chakra. I'm going to try being a lawyer. Well, that didn't do it. Maybe if I'm a ballet dancer, well, that didn't do it. Well, maybe if I'm a sumo wrestler, that'll do it. Maybe if I'm a woman, that'll do it. Well, that was, maybe if I'm like a gay man, that'll do it. Maybe we just try all these things over thousands and thousands of lives. But if that were the only force, we just keep going around in circles forever. But underneath is another force. And that is the mind seeking God. Earlier, Krishna has said, everyone in all ways seeks me, just by the wrong means. I will tell you what that impulse is. From the moment you wake up in the morning to the moment your head hits the pillow at night, you are really only involved in one activity, seeking the good by your highest understanding of that and avoiding suffering. What about people who are martyrs, who give up their lives for another? Yes, but even if you do that, it's for your idea of the good. And this is the divine discontent. And one of my favorite sayings of St. Augustine, thou hast made us for thyself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it finds its rest in thee. So underneath that karma chakra is the Sanatana Dharma, the eternal Dharma, constantly pressing on the human heart. Where's the good? Where's the good? And you may go through a lifetime where you think the good is revenge, getting back at other people, drugs, sex, and rock and roll. But you'll find that it's incredibly unsatisfying. Oh, it's about family. You'll have a family and there'll be some joys in it, but also lots of heartache. You'll try everything. And then somewhere in our unfoldment as a human being, someone will plant a seed about the mystic life. You may pick up a book, and that's as much as we do in that lifetime. Or maybe we go to a lecture. Oh, this is too much. Next lifetime, I'm just going to be a worldly guy this time, or a worldly woman. No blame. I always like to say the rosebud is not a failure as a bloom. We each flower in our own time. And here Krishna says we're looking at the long view. But I promise you, Krishna has said, my devotee is never long. What if I'm not devoted to Krishna? What if I like Jesus or the goddess? It doesn't matter what name you use. In the end, you don't even need to use a name. The nameless one that inhabits eternity is probably the best name. And at some point, we may have the great punya to meet a woman or a man of steady wisdom. Those of us who studied Tripura Rahasyam, the first third of the book, it's a story of Hemaleka and Hemachyuta. And it fundamentally answers the question, what is the root cause of liberation? And the answer is sadhu sangha, association with the wise. When we meet somebody who has what we want, And it goes quickly if we're open. Any thoughts? The beautiful thing about the tradition, you can only do yoga today. Doesn't matter how crappy a yogi you were yesterday or last week or last year. Today, can you remember God? Can you turn your heart and your mind to God as you understand God right now? You can meditate, that's great. If you could practice Viveka Vairagya Cha, discrimination and detachment, well, that's really good. And as Krishna said earlier, it's practice and renunciation and detachment. And you can never detach from the world out of a moral idea, only through deep insight. Swamiji used to say, go after the world, let it kick you in the teeth, let it drop you again and again. And then he would laugh diabolically. So it's the only way to kill the ego. We only let go of the world through seeing that what we've been doing, the way we've been thinking, is causing me to suffer. That's Vairagya. All right, next verse.
तपस्विभ्योऽधिको योगी ज्ञानिभ्योऽपि मतोऽधिकः कर्मिभ्यश्वाधिको योगी तस्माद् योगी भवार्जुन. The yogi is thought to be superior to the ascetics and even superior to men of knowledge, mere scholars. He is also superior to men of action. Therefore, you strive to be a yogi, O Arjuna.
So what do we mean by a yogi? What gets united with what? Oh, myself gets united with Brahman. No! Yourself already is Brahman. It is the mind which right now is attached to the world and filled with vimarsha, deliberation, vikalpa, thoughts. When the mind becomes no mind, that sense of individuality dissolves, it disappears. And it is the mind that becomes yoked to the infant. Yourself undergoes no change. Nitya yukta, eternally yoked to the infant. Meaning it no longer extroverts into the world, getting caught up and the tyranny of an addictive relationship with people, places, things, and conditions. What verse are we on? What number?
47.
I think we're almost done. I think we have one more then.
Yeah, that's right.
Hang on, a motorcycle went by. Say again.
Yeah, that's right. After this one, yeah, this 47, then it's just the ending verse of
The
the chapter.
little Upanishad, yes.
Yoginamapi sarvesham madgato naantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yo mam same yukta tamotmata. And among all yogis, he who full of faith with his inner self merged in me worships me is according to me the most devout.
Yes. So the highest parama prema, devotion, is not the puja I do to the idol. That's very good. It will help to purify the head and the heart. But the highest worship is Atmaramana, the worship of my very self. This Brahmananda Rasaswa, this tasting of the juice of the bliss of Brahman. And that was one of the most beautiful things about being around Swamiji. He was so empty. And he would show us the mind yoked to the infinite. This parama prema, highest form of devotion. All right, and then one last verse, the Upanishad.
Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagavad Gita Su Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Shri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Atma Samyama Yogo Nama Shashtodhyaya. Thus, in the Upanishads of the glorious Bhagavad Gita, in the science of the eternal, in the scripture of yoga, in the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the sixth discourse ends entitled The Yoga of Meditation.
Yes. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.